Welcome to General Structures 2 and Lateral Forces, Lesson 4 quiz, question number 8. And it says, special moment resisting frames may be constructed of any of the following materials except A. Cast in place concrete, B. Precast concrete, C. Structural steel, or D. Reinforced masonry. And I know right off the bat that the answer is D. Reinforced masonry. And once again, a moment resisting frame is one that transfers moment. So in other words, you get all three forces right here at this. This is how I would show where it's, in other words, if you want to show kind of a pin, you'll go like this. And that will not, that means it's a hinge, you can think of it, where it would allow rotation right here. And this will not allow rotation. What it will do is it will, if this starts to bend like that, you could always think of it comes off of as a 90, and then it'll want to come back down to that. Obviously it's overblown there, but in other words, it will carry that moment across. And if you look at the moment, I don't know if we ever did moment diagrams, if I've done moment diagrams on frames, but you would look at the moment on this one and it would come up like that. So let's say if you had and then it would come down like this, and this would match. Let's say this is 100 whatever foot-pounds, this is 100 foot kips or foot-pounds, and in this situation you would have to be at 0 right here. So it could possibly come like that and like that, but this has to transfer to 0. The moment has to be at 0. In other words, it's brought from side to side. Okay, so that's what a moment frame is. That's not the best. That's a 2-second explanation of what it is. And on top of that, if you think about moment frames, well, if I were going into this not knowing a lot about it, I guess in my opinion, there's a lot of things you can cross out. Structural steel, you can cross out that for sure, because if you think, oh, moment frame, let's say this is your column, and here's your beam coming into your column. And if you, hopefully you remember, and I've done some videos on this, of you have to restrain this bottom and top flange. If you just put an angle right here with bolts through it, that would be a pin connection. But if you restrain these top flanges, then that is now a moment connection. Those are bolts. There'd be a bolt right there. That's now a moment connection, and that would go there. And that's not the only thing that needs to be in that, but that's how you can tell the difference just right off the bat. So that's, hopefully you remember this from past things and your workings as an architect or engineer. So structural steel is a negative. Going through this, you can say cast in place concrete. Sure, you know, I can carry a moment through there. You just cast it and put your reinforcing going through. Now, I don't know how you want to show your reinforcing, but you'll make it so it's these bars splice with the bars in the column, and they go into your floor system or your beam, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, sure, that's integral. That's going to move. When this moves, that's going to show, if it's a frame, when this moves something like this, that will want to come off at that angle and come up like that. In other words, if you get a moment that's wanting to twist it that way, that's what this will do. And that makes sense. Now, so in the end, you're down to precast concrete or reinforced masonry. And you might say, well, precast concrete, they can't do this. And you'd be correct. Precast concrete, you'd come up with a piece like that, and you'd come up with this piece, and you'd have to connect it somehow, which they have. And this is one of those things where I'm not going to try to draw, and I'm not going to take pictures off the internet because I don't want to get sued. Anyways, you come in, and there's ways that you can do this. They have, like the steel connection, there's not just one simple way, but it involves doweling, or maybe you could even put plates and do some sort of situation where if you are convinced that you're carrying that moment from this beam to this column, then sure, it's a moment connection. That's the way you can tell. But they also have this in your study guide that says reinforced masonry. That's a negative. And if you really try to think about it, I'm not going to get into it. Theoretically, you could attempt to do something like that, but I'm not going to confuse anybody. This is the correct answer, except you will not find moment connections in reinforced masonry, and that's common practice. So I'm not going to go any further than that. I'm going to call it quits, and I will see you on question number 9.